How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball. Welcome back to another review show from the Premier League. Another game week done and dusted. And we have our predictions to run through. And let's look at the scores on the doors. 181 to 181. And the way the scoring works, it's 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And at the end of the episode, we go through our star man, which is 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. Let's get into the weekend's action. Starting off at the Emirates. Arsenal 2, Wolves 1. Sim went for 2-0. I went for 2-1. I just about snatched that 5-pointer off you right at the end as Wolves got that consolation goal. But look, I thought Arsenal were good value for their win this weekend, to be honest. There was only one team in it. They did take their foot off the gas a bit in that second half, which allowed Wolves back in the game. But I think Arsenal did deserve that win.
Yeah, it's starting to purr a bit. That kind of electric attacking play that we associate Arsenal with last season starting to return. I think I've got to say both goals. I think they were 2-0 up within, 15 minutes or something, which is actually, I believe, the first time this season they've scored early, which was a staple of their play last season. They used to start like a house on fire every game. So are there signs of Arsenal sparking to life? I mean, based on the goals they scored, potentially.
You got to say that Wolves were missing some key players though in this game. 2 centre midfielders, I believe, were out suspended for this game for Wolves. So I think they caught them at a good time.
Yeah, still no Neto, obviously,
and no Neto. But I think you got to give them credit for starting the game the way that they did. But they're still not scoring a bag full of goals, are they?
No, but it's not like they didn't create the chances. 2.89 XG, that's quite high. And I think you got to say the 2 goals they scored are really well-worked moves. Great finish from Saka, and obviously Odegaard. That was like a classic Odegaard finish from last season, which he hasn't quite have been on form this season. But again, signs he's getting back to his best. And that is a bit worrying, albeit it's true, late in the game, they had a bit of a stumble. They conceded and they're hanging on a bit right at the end. But they definitely deserved the win. It would have been very unfair on the balance of the game if they didn't get the win in this one. So definitely, I would say based on how Arsenal have been playing this season, this was definitely a lot more convincing than they have been. But it was only 2-1, so they didn't on the scoreline didn't end up being a battering, which maybe it should have been. But definitely on the evidence of the goals they scored, they do seem to be clicking a lot more. And also they were 5-0 up at half time, weren't they, in midweek as well? So definitely signs of them maybe getting back to that kind of state they were last season.
For me, I think Odegaard has been off form for the whole season so far, and I think this was probably his best game of the season. And it's no surprise to me that their attacking play is starting to click again with the return of form to Odegaard. I think that's what it's coming down to.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm still not convinced by their way. If they start doing this kind of stuff away from home, we'll have to wait and see, because at home they've always been very strong. But look, top of the league, can't really complain if you're an Arsenal fan.
Yeah. Absolutely. But let's move on to Brentford against Luton. It finished 3-1 to Brentford on the day. Sim went for 1-0. I went for 2-0. So we both get a point on the board here. I think it was very much a deserved victory for Brentford this weekend. Yeah,
they were dominant. I think they went 2-0 up in the second half, and then kind of Luton pulled one back against the run of play. Then Brentford kind of hit them back fairly soon after the goal as well, just to restore parity. It kind of felt like Brentford could have scored whenever they wanted to. They had a really high XG in the game, 3.47, which must have been one of the highest of the weekend. Luton, on the other hand, they found chances really hard to come by. And look, Brentford are a very solid defensive team, and the way Luton play, it was never going to be likely that Luton were going to go there and create loads of chances. It was always going to be a case of, if they can just limit Brentford and stay in the game and maybe nick a point or even nick a 1-0, that would be in the game plan. But once it went 2-0, it was always going to be very difficult for Luton to get back there. And Brentford, look, continuing their decent form. They've been in good form for a good few weeks now, haven't they?
Yeah. No, they're playing well. Thomas Frank has got them ticking. 27 shots they had on the weekend, which is crazy. So credit to Brentford. Worrying times for Luton.
It's always going to be worrying times. I think,
especially with the resurgence of Bournemouth as well.
Yeah, Bournemouth starting to play well. Look, I don't think they're under any illusions. They're going to be in a relegation scrap. They're going to have to fight for every single point. But to be honest, the way the bottom 3 teams below them at the moment are going, except maybe not Everton. Everton are playing quite well at the moment, but Burnley and Sheffield United, I think, it's going to be a scrap for every point that they can get.
I just can't see anyone else getting relegated but Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United this year. I just can't see it.
Yeah, they're definitely in big trouble. But look, we've got the other relegation teams to cover. But we know Luton, they've done really well at home, being very hard to play against, but they just lack that quality in the forward line. And unless Morris is either getting a penalty or getting something from a set piece, they really, really struggle to create chances. And that's ultimately, they're going to have to rely on their good defence. And when they're conceding goals like they did against Brentford, it doesn't give them any chance.
Yeah. Let's move on to the other relegation candidates in Burnley against Sheffield United. It finished 5-0 to Burnley at Turf Moor. Sim went for 2-1. I went for 1-0. So both get a point here again. Heckingbottom in massive trouble. Rumours that that was his last game. Credit to Vincent Kompany for pulling through a massive result like that. But look, I do still think they're in massive trouble. Oleg McBurney gets sent off at 2-0 and it just compounded to the bad day for Sheffield United at the office, and 5-0 on the day, and Heckingbottom has to go.
100%. I think Ornstein's already said he's set to be sacked, so it's pretty much confirmed at this point. The rumours at the moment are that Chris Wilder is set to make a return to Sheffield United. They need a change, because when you're getting battered, there's one thing getting you can say it's a one-off when you got battered by Newcastle 8-0. But when you're getting bad, and then they were 3-0 down against Bournemouth last week, weren't they? Before they got a late consolation to maybe make the scoreline look a bit more respectable. But you're losing 3-0 at home basically to Bournemouth. You're conceding lots of goals, and then losing 5-0 to a relegation struggling Burnley, who can't buy a win this season, and who also are so bad defensively, and you can't even score a goal against them. That has to be massive alarm bells. I don't think that result can stand. And from Burnley's point of view, massive confidence boosting win. They need. I think it's important for them not just to win, but to win 5-0 and show that they can actually, when they open teams up, they got the quality to start finishing these chances. And I actually think a win like that might give them confidence going into the next few games. Because I think in the first part of the season, they have played good football, Burnley. I don't think anyone can deny they've played some good stuff. But the problem is they've created quite a few chances, but they haven't had the quality to be finishing them. And they haven't been able to stick enough chances away to make that good football count. And because they play open, that defence just hasn't held up to the quality of chances they've been missing. But now they've got a win where they've got scored 5 goals, some good quality goals in there as well. I saw the Amdouni goal was a really nice goal. He's maybe a player who should be scoring more at the moment. Koleosho got on the score sheet as well. He's been a player who's been a bright spark for them, and he's finally got on the score sheet. So maybe now a few of these players who got their first goals of the season, and they've got this really big victory. Hopefully for them, they can start making their good football count now under Vincent Kompany, and maybe make a push for safety, because they've played good football against everyone. It's just about the chances they've been missing. So hopefully that can start to change for them. But Sheffield United are just tragic at the moment, and they play horrible football, and they just don't even defend well. They did in a couple games against Spurs and City, but I kept saying even in those games they did end up losing. So they didn't even have anything to show for the tight games they were in. Yeah. So I think at this point you just have to say it's probably time to go for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. But Burnley, look, it's all well and good doing it against Sheffield United, but they need to start picking up points against the other teams around them. They've got a massive game in a couple of weeks against Everton at Turf Moor. And I think if they lose that game against Everton, then I don't know. I can't see them recovering, to be honest.
Yeah, as I say, it's going to be interesting to see how they react to this game, because they needed that kind of result where they just battered someone and won really well. And now it's come. We'll see if the confidence starts to flow through this team a bit in the forward line now.
All right, let's move on to Forest against Everton. 1-0 to Everton at the City Ground. Sim went for 3-1. I went for 2-2. So Sim gains a point for this one. An interesting game at the City Ground. I thought Everton... the game toed and froed a little bit. I think both teams had their moments, but I think Everton probably just did about enough to win the game, clearly, with the 1-0 scoreline. Yeah,
I was watching it, and as much as if you look at the stats, it seems like a bit of an even game, but I actually think Everton were probably more in control of the game overall. Obviously, Dwight McNeil had a shot cleared off the line in a very similar situation to the one that he scored from in the second half, and he was probably man of the match. He had a pretty good game. It wasn't a game of loads of chances. Steve Cooper had big complaints about a penalty that should have been given for him with a shirt pull, and this is where VAR is madly inconsistent, because you have that moment in that game where I would say VAR shouldn't be getting involved, but then you go cast your mind back to the Manchester derby, and Rodri pulls back Rodri gets pulled back in a situation where wasn't even as blatant as the one against Forest, and that one did get pulled back, and this one doesn't. So I understand Steve Cooper's frustrations. I don't think he should be hanging his hat on a shirt pull in the penalty area to get a point. That I think if you're in a situation where you're complaining about those kind of things, I think you got bigger problems, kind of thing. I think he should be more worried about the lack of chances creating, and they're definitely missing Arione 100%. Chris Wood just isn't the same kind of threat. He's a physical threat, but what Arione gave you ahead of someone like Chris Wood, he gave you a bit more pace in behind as well. Chris Wood doesn't kind of have that. So when they come up against a team who are aggressive in the back, they struggle to get in behind. Gibbs White had a great game against Brighton when he was given all the space, but when you come up against a team like Everton who aren't giving you that space, struggled to make an impact. And I felt like Everton just looked more dangerous on the day whenever they did go forward. But as I say, in games like this where two teams who do generally like to play without the ball, it was always going to be a game of few chances, and I thought Everton just made the most of theirs, and Forest really struggled to create any.
You've got to give credit to Everton. 10 points deducted, put them back into the relegation zone, and it looks as though with the form that they are on, pulling out results week in, week out at the moment, I think they're going to be all right, Everton, even with a 10-point deduction.
Yeah, I mean, look, still only 2 points behind Luton, so I don't think they're looking at that thinking like the 10-point has doomed them in any way. I definitely think they're going to be safe. But again, classic Everton away from home. They've just been great away from home, and I think the way Sean Dyche sets them up is I think they're more suited to that.
Next up, Newcastle against Manchester United at St James's Park. 1-0 to Newcastle. Both of us going for 3-1. And this was a battering. Never mind the scoreline. This was an absolute battering at St James's Park. And I think, as much as I think Newcastle are a good team, right, I think Manchester United just made them look so much better than they are in this game. They were shocking, Man United. Rashford was an absolute disgrace out on that right-hand side. Martial, absolute disgrace. I mean, Rashford was just walking around at times, no tracking back. He literally was an absolute disgrace, to be honest, in this game. And Ten Hag was looking on after the game, looking very solemn and depressed. And it looks as though, I mean, I've said it for a while, I think the writing's on the wall for Ten Hag, and he can't get his players to perform in big games. He just can't. In the Champions League as well, giving up two goals advantages against Copenhagen, against Galatasaray. And I've said it so many times this season, they can pull out the results when they're playing against the relegation candidates consistently. But when they come up against any sort of quality, they are found wanting every single time. And this was no different. And 1-0 flattered Manchester United in this game.
100%. The only positive for them is that at half time it was 0-0 when they should have been at least 2-3-0 down, and Newcastle were missing so many chances. They were at their aggressive best. Newcastle, they were just suffocating Man United. Man United had no idea how to play out the back and play out Newcastle's press. Newcastle were just winning the ball high up the pitch and creating chances at will. They just didn't in the first half. They kind of just missed so many opportunities. It kind of felt like, can Man United get any worse in that second half? And I would say I wouldn't say Man United improved massively, but it was a bit of a closer game-ish. I mean, obviously Newcastle took the lead. Trippier with a really nice pass in behind to Gordon. They got their reward, and Newcastle should have killed that game. But then the only thing I would say is last 5 minutes, Man United were pushing and they nearly found an equaliser. But when any game in the Premier League is 1-0, there's always a bit of worry in those latter stages for the team that are winning, that they could give out the result. But 100% it would have been a massive snatch and grab if Man United were to get that goal. And they were just so poor. And I completely agree. There was that one moment, wasn't there, in the game where Livramento, he's on the left-hand side.
He looks class, by the way.
He does look very good. But he just breezed past Rashford, and Rashford didn't even put in a challenge. And Rashford doesn't even track, once he gets past him, he just lets him run. He stops walking. He's like, someone else can deal with that. Yeah. And that body language has got to be very concerning for Ten Hag. And I have to say, I was watching the game as well, and Ten Hag just cuts the guy who just doesn't even seem like he wants to be there. He's got his flat cap on. He's got this big coat. He's looking like really shivering. He's cold. He looked like he wanted to go home. He didn't look like he wanted to be there managing Man United at that point. And sometimes you just get an image that tells 1,000 words. I felt like when they cut to Ten Hag, he just seemed like a guy who just was ready to go, was ready to go home. He didn't want to be there. So, and you look, it's very similar. It's very, very similar to Spurs last season. You got to remember how many times last season we were take leads like United have in the Champions League and gave it up. Yeah. And you can you can look at those games and say, oh, look, we took the lead and we just gave up. But look, these players don't have the fight to keep these leads and to stay in these games. When they come up against a Newcastle team who have all the fight in the world, they're just second best in every duel. And they were terrible, absolutely terrible. And I just can't see this team turning it around at this point.
Rashford has shades of Rashford from 2 years ago, you know, when he was struggling to get into the team, struggling for form, didn't like the manager. Do you reckon he's playing for the manager to get sacked or something? I don't know. Something just seems really off with him at the moment. This whole season, to be honest.
That's definitely true. But I also reckon like he probably doesn't like the fact that Ten Hag's playing him on the right, where he's clearly not as comfortable on the right-hand side. He's being shunted out there to make room for Garnacho on the left. And he's probably thinking like, look, I got 18, I don't know how many goals he got last season, 17 goals or whatever in the Premier League. Why am I being shunted out for Garnacho, a youngster, on the left?
He's their best player.
But exactly. He's got to realise that Garnacho is the form player at the moment. He's the one playing well. And if at the and to be fair, like Rashford has been, I think he's got 1 goal this season. So like he's got to up his own performance before he starts complaining and spitting his dummy at the pram. And his performance seems to be doing that.
But how mad is it? We're in Ten Hag's second season now at Manchester United. And they've still got these players like Martial and players where, you know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, probably past their sell-by date at Manchester United. You talk about this big rebuild at Man United since Ten Hag has come in, and they've still got players like that playing. It's mad.
100%. And that's got to frustrate him. And just on evidence of that, it's just they were so second best. It was a bit embarrassing at times, to be honest, that game.
Let's move on to the Sunday games. Bournemouth against Aston Villa, which finished 2-2 at the Vitality, and Sim went for 2-2, a big fat 5-pointer for Sim in this one. I went for 2-1 to Villa, so I get nothing for this game. But Bournemouth, man, they're really starting to get to grips with the way Iraola wants to play. They're starting to play some good football, getting results on the board quite consistently now. And Villa's away form kind of, they got a win against Spurs last week, but that was kind of exception to the rule. And I think Villa's away form is a bit worrying for them. But Bournemouth going really well at the moment. Yeah,
I have to say, another game where Villa's away form definitely showed up, because Bournemouth should have won this game. They got very lucky, Villa, to come away with it. Obviously, 90th minute, Watkins equaliser, just about saved their blushes. But it was another really poor away performance from Aston Villa. For some reason, defensively, they just go to potty, basically, when they're away from home. They just can't seem to stop the stem of chances, especially when they come up against offensive teams, or teams who want to attack them away from home. They play this aggressive high line and they just keep getting picked off. And to be fair, I'm looking at Bournemouth now, and Solanke's starting to come into a bit of form again. They've got this front three but behind Solanke and Semenyo, Cliver and Tavernier, and I'm starting to see sprouts of what they're trying to do. Very fast players who can all take on their man, and who are all quite good at dribbling as well. Semenyo is also playing in good form at the moment, got a really nice goal. Tavernier and Cliver are starting to cause trouble. So all of a sudden, I think they're starting to get to grips with I think Iraola is starting to figure out how he wants his team to play and what his best 11 is. And all of a sudden they're looking, not only they're entertaining to play, which they were at the beginning of the season, but they're starting to manage games a lot better, and they're conceding a lot less chances than maybe they were in the earlier weeks. Now they're getting really positive results. So I think Iraola is starting to show his worth, considering he was probably 1 game away from being sacked. He's really turning it around. So he's showing that he's still got the players on side as well. And just gutting for them that they conceded that goal really late on. But I got to say, brilliant header from Watkins. Yeah. Really great header.
Unbelievable. Clutch goal from Watkins. But, you look at the XG from this game, 2.02 for Bournemouth, 0.68 for Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And they snatch that draw. So very lucky for Aston Villa, but credit to Bournemouth for the way they're playing and the results that they're pulling out quite consistently now. Because you've got to remember, only a few weeks ago, they beat Newcastle by 2-0 at the Vitality. So you've got to give them massive credit. But let's move on to Stamford Bridge. Chelsea beat Brighton by 3-2. Sim went for 4-1. I went for 2-2. So Sim gets another point on the board for this one. I think, I don't know. I think Chelsea were the better side in the first half, but I thought in the second half, Brighton really came out and tried to spoil the party for Chelsea and just about couldn't do it. Some weird decisions going on today by the referee, but Chelsea just about get over the line.
Well, I think the game changed with the red card because Gallagher gets sent off for, I think it was 2-0, or was it 2-1? I think it was 2-1 at the red card.
2-1, yeah.
And they just got back in the game, then the red card, and all of a sudden Brighton, obviously we're going to dominate in that second half with the extra man. But I think Chelsea in the first half, they really came out flying, obviously got the early 2 goals, and they were really exploiting Brighton's defence. And the goals they scored as well, it's just a classic example of how Brighton's struggled to defend, because it was just a couple of crosses hooked into the box and just Chelsea players bullying the Brighton defenders. And I think that's a clear example that Brighton are really struggling at the back at the moment, and their defenders don't have enough quality, they don't have enough strength as well. And in the 6-yard box, Colwell bullied their centre-back. Enzo Fernandez gets a free header. And that's the trouble that Brighton have been having. They can play all the pretty football they want, but they're just so weak at the back that it gets completely undone. They did get back in the game. Really nice goal from Buonanotte. And then Gallagher gets a red card. And so you're thinking, okay, this game might be only going one way in the second half. But credit to Chelsea, they were pretty solid, I thought, in that second half. And they got a goal on the counter-attack with a penalty. Through Mudryk goes through. They get a penalty with a foul from James Milner, make it 3-1. I think it's a penalty. I think it was a VAR check. And obviously Brighton get another goal very late in the game. João Pedro with a header from a corner, and then it was a late rally from Brighton to try and get the equaliser. But I just didn't feel like Brighton really did enough to get anything from the game in the end.
And that bloody penalty check right at the end for that Levi Colwell header, basically.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
It's like, how long do they need to check for Levi? Like, it was nowhere near his arms. It hit his head, clearly, and they have to take 10 years to check that.
It was so obvious.
Ridiculous.
It was so obviously not a penalty. But Brighton, look, they got back to winning ways against Forest, was it last week? But another loss. So I think that's one win in 8 or 9 for them.
Yeah, it's a long time since they've been on good form, because they started the season like a house on fire, didn't they? And then come the end of September, they've been on shocking form since then.
Yeah, to be fair, pick it up quickly. Like everyone, they do have a lot of injuries, but yeah, the form has just been terrible. And I think it's just defensively they got massive problems. But good win for Chelsea.
It is a good win for Chelsea. But on Brighton, like we all said it at the beginning of the season, they're going to struggle whilst being in Europe. And I think that's what we're seeing at the moment, to be honest. I didn't think they'll struggle this badly, to be honest.
But it's mad that they're in such bad form, but they're still 8th.
Yeah, so how many points behind United are they?
They're 2 points behind United.
And United have just been on like the best form in the league, which is crazy.
They won 4 out of 5 out of 6, didn't they? Yeah.
Let's move on to Liverpool against Fulham in a crazy game at Anfield. Sim went for 4-0. I went for 2-1. Sorry, no, I went for 3-0. Sorry. And look, I think Liverpool completely dominated this game, to be honest. But Fulham just kept finding ways to score goals, to be honest. I don't know how they were doing it. With the lack of firepower Fulham have, to score 3 goals at Anfield is absolutely nuts. But you got to say, Fulham go 3-2 up late in the game. And I don't know how Liverpool came back with it. They scored 2 in the next minute after that. Yeah. And it was just like, what? Like, how did that happen? Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in clutch for Liverpool. And you got to give massive credit for that fight back for Liverpool.
Yeah, and they'll be very disappointed that they let it get to that stage, because they were completely dominant. They got the goal ahead, and that was like, they were thinking, okay, it's only going to go one way. And then out against run and play, it seemed like Fulham didn't have many chances, but they were just clinical whenever they got in front of goal. Robinson was giving them trouble on the left-hand side, to be fair. He was probably Fulham's best player on the day. Good cutback for Wilson, makes it 1-1. Liverpool then take the lead again. Brilliant goal from McAllister, but again, goal from a corner. You have to say all 4 Liverpool goals were amazing.
Yeah, it's true.
All 4 of them were brilliant, but McAllister was probably the pick of them. Unbelievable goal from about 30 yards to make his first goal for Liverpool. And then they just kept getting paid back. And then when it went to 3-2, Liverpool were kind of, I know Nunes hit the bar and they had a few chances in that second half, but they were struggling just to maintain control of that game. And Fulham do get that goal with Bobby Cordova-Reid. But this is what I'm saying against Liverpool about Liverpool this season. They just have so much firepower. Like, they'll just outscore you. Even if Fulham score 3, they'll score 4. That's the kind of mentality they have, and they've just got goals everywhere, and they showed it. I don't think any of their front 3 scored yesterday, did they? No. And they still had the quality to score the goals they did and win the game. And brilliant goal from Trent right at the end to win the game. And I just think it's games like this that I know in a weird way they didn't play well, and you could say they they were lucky to get the win. But it's games like this that tell me like that I think they're gonna run whoever's in the first place very close. If it's Man City or Arsenal at the moment, it looks like it might be. But I think they're right in amongst it for the title race. I really do.
Yeah, it looks like they are at the moment. And like you got to say, like even some people say they didn't play well. I think they did play well yesterday, Liverpool. They just missed so many like easy chances. Darwin Núñez was up to his old tricks, missing 2 or 3 gilt-edged chances. Mo Salah uncharacteristically missed a like massive open goal yesterday. So, I mean, on another day, all these chances go in, right? And then you're talking about a massive scoreline for Liverpool.
Yeah,
so
that's fair enough.
I don't even think they played bad yesterday, Liverpool. They just got a bit unlucky.
Yeah, but on those days, you know, when you're getting unlucky and you go 3-2 down, lesser teams wouldn't have come back.
100%. Moving on to West Ham against Crystal Palace, finished 1-1 on the day. Sim went for 1-0 to West Ham. I went for 2-1 to West Ham, but it did finish 1-1. I wasn't watching this game, but I felt, looking at the stats and stuff, it looks like a fairly even game. Maybe West Ham just edging it and maybe should have got the result. But a Crystal Palace team that are not going well at the moment. Questions being asked of Roy Hodgson. To be fair, questions being asked of David Moyes as well. But no Eze. Michael Elise was in the team, but you've got to be beating that Crystal Palace side if they come to your place.
Yeah, and I think I was watching a bit of the first half and West Ham were definitely on top and they were definitely looking like the better team. Obviously, Kudus gets the goal. He's in good form at the moment, isn't he? Really good form. And he's really starting to show, I think, first few weeks, I know he scored in his debut, but first few weeks he maybe wasn't maybe getting consistent goal contributions. But I think recently, got a couple of assists last week and got, I think, a goal the week before as well. So he's really starting to show why he was so sought after. And he's, look, we said it, we were desperate for Spurs to sign him in the summer. I think he's showing that one right now. He scored a nice goal and he was probably West Ham's best player on the day. But I think West Ham kind of rested on their laurels. They didn't really go for the throat for Palace and they made a really, really bad mistake. Mavropanos, former Arsenal centre-back, he just gifts Edouard the ball and gives him a one-on-one and they take advantage and West Ham didn't have the quality to come again and score another goal. So that's the frustrating thing with West Ham, when they have these moments in games where they just don't look creative, and with the players they have, that just should never be the case. So that's the frustrating thing. Obviously, again, European football probably they could argue they're feeling tired and stuff like that, but it wasn't inspiring from either side, really.
Come start next season, I don't see either of these managers being in a job, to be honest. I think West Ham, with the players that they have, especially in the front line, need to be doing a lot better. And Crystal Palace, not more needs to be said about them. I mean, Roy Hodgson's past his sell-by date, let's be honest. So they need to get a young, fresh manager in the mould of Patrick Vieira back in the frame at Crystal Palace. I
just imagine if West Ham had an attacking focus coach, like an Ange. Imagine Ange was in charge of West Ham. I reckon he would do really well with them.
100%. I completely agree. But let's move on to the last game of the weekend, which was Manchester City 3, Tottenham Hotspur 3. Both of us going for 4-2 to Man City. What a game of football this was. It was unbelievable. And it just seems like any game that Ange Postecoglou's involved in at the moment is a great game of football. And it was two great minds coming together, wasn't it? Pep Guardiola and Ange Postecoglou. And I think at half time, I think all our fears were kind of being realised, weren't they? Man City absolutely dominated us for the first 45 minutes. Very lucky not to be 3-4 goals behind, to be honest. Haaland missing some easy chances. We just could hardly get out of our half, to be honest, in that first half. And we got that goal with our first attack of the game. Heung-min Son absolutely destroyed Jeremy Doku, but it was a great work from Brian Hill and great work from Kulusevski to play the ball over to Heung-min Son. But after that, I mean, there was only one team in it in that first half, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. We should have been 3 or 4 down, to be honest. We got very lucky. First of all, I mean, obviously we scored our first attack. I think it was our first shot of the game, wasn't it, when Son scored? But after that moment, it was literally all City, and they came back straight away, made it 1-1, and own goal, and it was just one-way traffic pretty much. Like, they just played it to Doku every time they could. He was just a massive threat, and they were just creating chance after chance, and we were just giving them chances. Really sloppy play out the back, just gifting them chances. They're obviously good enough to create their own chances as well. It seemed like only a matter of time before they went 2-1 up, and they did, from City's point of view, really well worked goal well from Tottenham's point of view, really poor defending, but they went 2-1 up, and Spurs were very lucky to go into half-time 2-1. But I think Ange realised some of the problems. He made a change, and it all changed in the second half.
It did all change in the second half, and Ange must have drilled them at half-time, because we were not playing anywhere near to the kind of football that Ange wants to play in that first half. There was points yesterday, we just looked scared and was just lumping it long every single time in the last stage of that first half. And second half, we got the ball on the deck, dominated possession. Giovanni Lo Celso and Kulusevski at the heart of things in the midfield. Bissouma slightly improved in the second half as well. I thought we played really well. Brian Hill got taken off at halftime. I think it was the right decision, because Højbjerg did give us that more control in the centre of the park. And look, I think we were the ones in the ascendancy for the majority of that second half. We were creating chances. We dominated possession, like I said. Got that goal from Giovanni Lo Celso, which was a lovely, lovely finish. But I think after that Giovanni goal, Man City did kind of gain momentum and started gaining control again in the game. They got the goal 3-2, and we got that clutch goal right at the end with Deki. Lovely run on the left-hand side for Brennan Johnson. Lovely cross as well. And Deki just absolutely bodied Nathan Ake for that goal, didn't he? That physical beast that is Dejan Kulusevski rose in the air. It kind of gave me vibes of that Harry Kane goal at the end a couple of years ago when we won 3-2 at the Etihad. But then what happened at the end of the game? I'm lost for words. I know it worked in our favour, but I'm just lost for words. Like, there's a foul. I can't remember who the foul was from.
Emerson on Haaland,
right? And then Jack Grealish looks like he's going through on goal, 1-on-1 with the keeper. And then he just blows up. He waves play on after the foul. Grealish goes through on goal. And just as he's going through on goal, the ref blows up and pulls it back for the free kick. Like, I'm not saying that I was angry at that decision, but it was a crazy decision and terrible refereeing.
Farcical, really. I mean, you've got to be absolutely fuming if you're a City fan for that moment. Obviously, you can't you can't look at just that one decision for why they drew, but you know, especially in that moment, pretty much last minute of the game, to be going for on goal. And then, especially how the referee dealt with the situation. He waved play on. He looked like he was going to see where the advantage. And as soon as Grealish looked like he was about to go through on goal, then he blows up. It was very, very odd. I have to put it down to a brain fart, unless you're going to say he had a Tottenham defender in his fantasy team or something. I don't know. But like, and what else can you put it down to? Just a crazy moment from the ref. Why he decided to blow up at that specific moment when he'd already gone and played advantage. It was very, very strange. But Tottenham got away with it. And but I think it was, look, based off the second half, the way we came back into the game, I wouldn't say a draw on that basis was lucky, but you got to say we definitely got away with one in the first half. And what I would say is, if you're a Tottenham fan who thinks that we should have won, we were unlucky not to win last week against Villa, you probably have to say we were lucky to get a draw.
100% we were lucky to get a draw on this one, but as well, like, as much as we were lucky to get a draw, we almost could have nicked it in this game in that second half. I thought we were absolutely brilliant in the second half. We really were. And I don't know another team in the Premier League that will go to the Etihad with their two sub-fullbacks as centre-backs and go and take a result there.
Yeah, and technically our first choice midfield three. Well, actually, Bissouma's there, but our midfield being decimated as well. So we've had a lot of injury problems, and I think, as you say, second half,
Brian
more
Hill
possession
on the wing as well.
More possession in the second half, and more passes in Man City, which is almost unheard of. So I think that's just testament to Ange sticking to his philosophy and it paying dividends.
Yeah, it's just who we are, mate. Let's move on to the star men, Darwin Núñez and Alexander Isak. You said in the prediction show, Darwin Núñez is not going to be Darwin Núñez. He was Darwin Núñez.
He should have scored at least 2 in this game. Very frustrating.
He
probably could have got a few assists as well. He did lay off a few chances, which didn't go his way as well. I don't think he had a terrible game. He just... so frustrating. But
I think that Salah open goal was a Darwin Núñez pass, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so as well. Very frustrating. So no points.
Yeah, for me, Newcastle beat Man United 1-0. Alexander Isak, he also had a couple of chances to get on the score sheet, to be fair, and maybe should have done. So I think it was a story of missed chances this weekend for both our star men.
Yeah, I think so.
So we end this week not level for the first time in a couple of weeks. 193 to Sim, 190 to me. We got another prediction show coming out today, actually, because Premier League, again, we've got midweek Premier League this week starting off tomorrow. So watch out for that. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.